welcome you to my channel. It's Observer of Anomalous Objects. My name is Dale, and I'm really excited today because we're going to have Dan Harary coming in as a guest. Before I bring him up, though, let me go ahead and just remind you, if you haven't done it already, you do me a favor and go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Also help this channel out by sharing and liking the videos as well. Let me bring Dan to stage right now. I think I got your last name right there, Dan Harary.
You did a great job. Yeah, I'm very proud of you. Very proud of you. Yep.
It's just exciting to have you here. You've got such an amazing life. And we were talking briefly before the podcast started about how kind of a new life has kind of evolved in the last year and a half. But let's step back from that first and go ahead and tell us about your life as a Hollywood publicist. That's quite the story.
That's usually how these things begin. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on. It's very sweet. I appreciate it. I grew up in Asbury Park, New Jersey, which is famous or became famous in the 70s because of Bruce Springsteen. Well, I worked with Bruce Springsteen in 1973. I was 16 and he wasn't famous. So that just gives you a sense of how my life organically evolved into the entertainment business and then later Hollywood. But my parents were from Brooklyn. They married. They moved to Asbury Park, New Jersey, where I was born. I grew up there. I had long hair. I played the drums. You can see my electronic drums behind me. And I was in rock bands from the age of 10. No, I'm sorry, from 12. From 12 till I moved out here in 24, I was in rock bands. And I was the stage manager and lighting director for a little concert hall in Asbury Park called the Sunshine Inn. It was a block from the ocean, and Bruce Springsteen was the house band there. So my friends and I knew Bruce Springsteen years before he was famous. We also worked with Kiss. We worked with Fleetwood Mac and a lot of other very, very big bands before they were famous, like Humble Pie, Deep Purple, Jay Giles, Mott the Hoople, Edgar Winter. So it was a remarkably wonderful time to be a teenager in the 70s and work in Asbury Park at a concert hall. Then I went to Boston University. I studied communications. Howard Stern, the famous radio host, was 2 years ahead of me at Boston University. I met him 10 years later in Hollywood, and we talked about BU, but we didn't know each other then. Then after college, I worked briefly in New York City at Columbia Pictures in the PR department. And at that time, I worked with Brooke Shields on her movie called The Blue Lagoon, and I helped to promote that movie on the East Coast. Then I had friends in LA who invited me to come visit them. And I asked my father, should I go visit my friends? And he goes, schmuck, move to Los Angeles. That's where the entertainment industry is. I said, okay, Dad. So the entirety of my life was changed literally in a 10-second talk I had with my father. He goes, just move there. I go, okay. So I came out in 1980. This year will be 44 years that I've been here in LA. And in the last 44 years, I've worked for a number of movie studios and very, very big PR firms. I worked for the American Film Institute. I worked with Hugh Hefner at the Playboy Channel. And then in 1996, I launched my own PR company. And there's my buddy, Steven.
Yeah.
So this October, my own PR firm will be 28 years old. It's called the Asbury PR Agency and named it after my hometown. And I've worked with a lot of celebrities. I've represented films, TV shows, charity events, red carpet events, plays, books, authors, musicians. Pretty much, I had Jay Leno for 2 years when he got The Tonight Show. So all that stuff, Dale, is in my first book, which is called Flirting with Fame. If you see the green poster behind me there, that's my first book. That came out 2 years ago. And it's my Hollywood history. And I have a lot of fun photos in that book. So that's and to this day, I'm still a Hollywood publicist. That's how I make a living. I don't make a lot of money in ufology, I'll be honest with you. And probably you don't either. Because the people I know in ufology, other than Steven Spielberg and J.J. Abrams, these guys aren't making a lot of money.
I was talking to Yvonne Smith at Roswell Festival, and she mentioned that a lot of abductees write books, but she says before you get too excited, you don't make any money writing books. I have 5 books. I have 5 books out as of last month. And
I have total. This is embarrassing. Total, I've made less than $3,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and my mother always goes, "Why aren't you selling more books?" And I said, "Mom, my name isn't Stephen King. That's probably." So it's very hard to sell books. I've been promoting my books for 2.5 years.
Mhm.
And I've gotten tons of. I was in Newsweek. I've been in the Village Voice, the LA Times. I've been on George Norrie twice. And it's very, very hard to sell books unless you're sort of a known entity,
Right.
or you're like a newsmaker. Like, remember Cassidy Hutchinson last year testified against Trump. So she had a best-selling book because she was a newsmaker. So it's very, very hard to sell books in this day and age.
Well, there's your secret now. You just got to testify against somebody famous.
If
I'm just kidding.
if I had any good celebrity secrets, like really good ones, I've never been a celebrity publicist per se, although I did represent Jay Leno, and nicest guy in the world. And Jay Leno, man, doesn't do drugs. I don't think he's ever had a beer in his life. So there's no dirt on Jay Leno. It's just not there. I'm not that kind of. There are publicists who do celebrities. There are publicists in Hollywood that do what's called crisis management. If you're like Hugh Grant when he got arrested for having a prostitute in Hollywood, I'm sure his PR team was like crisis management mode. I've had a few little baby things like that here and there, but there are people that specialize in crisis. My advice for crisis PR is admit it right away.
Right.
Right, unless you killed someone or raped someone. If it's minor, admit it immediately. To a major interview, say, I really messed that up. I am so sorry. Like Bill Clinton should have done. You know what? I screwed up really bad. I've apologized to my wife and my daughter. I apologize to you, the country. Please forgive me. I made a huge mistake. On day one with Monica Lewinsky, day one, all you had to do, wouldn't have been impeached. Oh, no, I don't know. I don't even know this woman. Well, it's going to come out. It always does. Anyway, I'm just babbling.
They're making good points. Anyway, so the other book you have behind you, and we're going to do a few things before we get there, but it's called After They Came.
Right. So After They Came is my UFO book, and I'll tell you all about that. Okay. That came out last year. And then my brand new book is called My Paranormal Life. I always have to read the Supernatural Stories from a Hollywood Insider. This one just came out a month ago.
Yeah, we'll cover that one in a minute and give you some screen time. Also talk about your other book, 5.
Great, sure.
Stuff. But let's just the one After They Came. Is that like a post-disclosure type book?
After They Came. Can I give you the backstory? Because
sure. Absolutely. Got all the time in the world.
All right, great, brother. Thank you. The backstory, Dale, to how that book came about is the story, because it was given to me by my dead father from heaven. Okay. That's how that book came to be. And I will now explain to you how and why I say those words, but it's absolutely true. And it goes back to, I'll start at the beginning. All right. So I told you my Hollywood entertainment. We did that part. Now we're going to do the other track of my entire life from the age of 5 till today, my paranormal track. It's been concurrent with the other one, and they only really started to think about it in the last 2 years. Okay, March 1970. I'm 14 years old. My dad picks me up from school and drives me home in his car, about 3:00 in the afternoon, daylight, in suburban New Jersey, near Asbury Park. It was our street, suburban street. Where my dad's driving me home. I'm 14, 1970. I look through the windshield. There's a huge silver V, like a letter V, like Victor, craft above my father's car, a couple of 100 feet above my father's car, hovering above his car, not moving. It's like following the car slowly. No propeller, no smoke, no noise, just silent like a butterfly. Excuse me, I just ate lunch. So I saw this through the windshield. So I go, Dad, there's a UFO above the car. Stop your car. Stop the car, Dad. Stop the car. I'm jumping up and down in the seat. He stops the car. We get out. We walk in front of the car. We look at this thing, Dale. It's huge. Each of the wings of the V, and it had sharp edges, shiny silver. And I would say each wing was like the size of maybe 2 school buses. So it was pretty big. Okay. Maybe 400 feet in front, 500 feet low,
Right.
directly above us. I'm jumping up and down. Dad, look, it's Star Trek. It's Star Trek. Dad, isn't this cool? Isn't this cool? Isn't this great, Dad? We're seeing a UFO. We're seeing a UFO. I was so excited. I remember clearly how excited I was. My father, Dale, looked at it like, looking at his watch. She's looking at his socks. He's looking at the car. You know, I should get the car washed. Bored to tears.
Really?
Bored. This is the whole story, which is going to come later. Bored, not happy, not sad, not scared. Zero reaction. Now, Dale, if you and I saw this together, we would be hugging and kissing and dancing in the streets, right? I mean, literally, we'd like high-fiving, right? My dad was bored to tears. It's the whole story, and it's how the book happened. I'll tell you later. So after about 2 minutes of looking at this thing, he goes, "Come on, kid, let's get in the car and go home." He was bored. He had no interest in this. We get in the car. He drives me home. I go to the kitchen. This is 1970, rotary phone. I called the rotary phone. I called the Asbury Park Press, my hometown newspaper. "Hi, my name is Danny. I'm 14. I just saw a UFO with my dad above our neighborhood." And the lady said, "Sonny, I can't talk to you right now. We're getting hundreds of phone calls about this. I got to go." And I remember that clearly. It's exactly what she said to me. I hung up. And then, Dale, I checked the newspaper every day that week. No article ever ran. Okay. Wow. I forgot about that event for 47 years. Okay. Think about that. I forgot that happened for 47 years. Okay. Put that over here for now. 1996, I see a UFO with my son. Now, this is now 26 years later. My ex-wife and my kids moved out to Lancaster after my divorce, Lancaster, California, which is near Edwards Air Force Base. And so I used to visit my kids out there on the weekends. I live in LA proper, and it's like a 2-hour drive. It's a pain in the ass. That's where they lived when they were little. So my son was 8, and he wanted a telescope for his 8th birthday, May 1996, his 8th birthday telescope. So I brought him a telescope. We set it up in the backyard in Lancaster. And the sky in Lancaster, crystal clear. There's no city lights. There's no smog. You can see Saturn and the moon and Mars and the stars. Everything is great. So we had fun with the telescope for about an hour. And then in the far right corner of the sky with my son, now keep in mind, I saw a UFO with my dad. Mm-hmm. Now, 26 years later, there's a UFO with my son. So wow. That's pretty, someone pointed that out to me last year. I'm like, wow, you're right. I didn't think of that. Right-hand corner of the sky, bright white, yellow, egg-shaped light just comes on, right-hand corner of the sky. And then it starts traveling across the entirety of the sky very fast, very high, in a straight line. And I said, look, I said, Jordan, look, there's a satellite. Isn't that cool? And Dale goes all the way across the sky, and then it stops in place for 30 seconds. Stopped. And I thought, oh, no, it's going to crash. Something's wrong with that satellite. It's going to plummet. I expected to see it plummet due to gravity. I really did. I'm like, oh, that something happened. After 30 seconds, it decides to turn around and go back all the way where it came from in a straight line, and then it vanishes. Okay, so that's not a satellite, right? Or a comet, or a meteor, or an asteroid, or a plane, or a helicopter. I mean, what could that be? Do you know who Jimmy Church is? I'm sure.
Oh yeah, Fade to Black.
So I told this story last year to Jimmy. Jimmy said, Dan, you were near Edwards Air Force Base. They reverse engineer extraterrestrial technology there. He goes, that was a military craft using extraterrestrial technology. And I said, Jimmy, you're absolutely right. It had to be. It had to be. What else could it have been? To have stopped in place? So that was my second UFO. Now we move ahead in time. 2007, I went to a bookstore here in LA. I was bored. I went to a bookstore. I'm looking around. I find Paranormal Books aisle, which I'd never heard of in my life. In my life, I never knew there was such a thing as paranormal books. And it wasn't familiar to me. So I go there, and there's Eric von Daniken, Chariots of the Gods. There's Richard Dolan's books, Zachariah Sitchin, Betty and Barney Hill, Travis Walton, crop circles, Nazca lines, Stonehenge, the pyramids, all these wonderful things that we all love, Bigfoot. I said, this is fantastic. I didn't know any of this stuff. I really didn't. 2007, I bought 12 books, carried them home, read every book. And along those books, while reading, I learned about MUFON. I did not know what MUFON was. I had not heard of MUFON.
Hmm.
So 2007, I joined MUFON Southern California. At the time, they had meetings every month. My very first meeting, Dale, I got so lucky. It was Giorgio Tsoukalos was the very first meeting. He was the guest speaker. And this is 2 years before Ancient Aliens, the TV show. So he is not famous at the time. He is, however, as we all know, Eric von Daniken's mentee for Ancient Astronaut Theory. So I'm sitting there, maybe 30 people, max, maybe 40 people at the most, in a little church. Giorgio does 90 minutes on Ancient Alien Theory. Dale, I'm like this. And he films photos, texts, UFOs in the Bible, UFOs in Renaissance paintings, the Nazca lines, the pyramids, Betty and Barney, Travis Walton, petroglyph drawings, cave drawings of UFOs. He's doing Eric Von Daniken, Easter Island. He's doing Eric Von Daniken's greatest hits. I'm like, literally, I'm like this. Tear. I remember, and honestly, I'm not a liar, so all my stories are true. There's a tear. I'm like, where has this information been all my life? I literally could not believe this. And I'm thinking to myself, my teachers never taught me this. I'm Jewish. My rabbi never taught me this. My parents never taught me this. My friends never. Where has all this information been? I'm fifth, whatever I was in 2007, 50 something, 51 maybe. I was fascinated, right? Fascinated. Yeah, I was 51. So at the end of the lecture, I go up to Giorgio. I hug the guy. I hug him. And I shake his hand. I go, Giorgio, you just literally changed my entire view of the world just now. And he said, cool, man, cool. Thank you. I'm glad you're one of us now. Very cool. So that's when I became like aware and awakened to the secret history of the universe, pretty much. 1 year later, 2008, I went to another MUFON meeting, SoCal, with a girlfriend named Barbara. She was a TV writer. And we went, do you know James Gilliland?
That name I'm not familiar with.
Do you know Isetti Ranch?
No.
Isetti, really? Okay, Dale, you got to.
That MUFON people?
You got to write this down. Isetti, E-C-E-T-I, the Isetti Ranch. It's in Washington State.
I've heard Isetti, but not Isetti.
Isetti, E-C-E-T-I. Isetti Ranch, Washington State, is the base of Mount Adams. It's owned by James Gilliland, Gilliland. So in 2008, Gilliland speaks at MUFON, and he goes, I own this property. It wasn't called Isetti then, but that's what it's called now. He goes, I own this property at the base of Mount Adams. We see UFOs all the time in the sky, all the time. He goes, for hundreds of years, they've been seen there. The Native Americans used to call Mount Adams the mountain of shining lights. And he said people from the CIA and NASA and the FBI and scientists and researchers and ufologists from around the world come to my ranch all the time. Now he shows an hour's worth of home movies. And these are not like if you squint and you stand on your head and you can see like a red dot. These are UFOs. Yeah. These are right. He's showing an hour's worth. And I'm like, I go, Barbara, can we go? Oh, so he said, I have a 3-day open house weekend, July 4th. Oh, wait, please come. Barbara, can we go? Please, I got to see UFOs. I want to see you. Okay. So I schlepped my poor girlfriend out. For 3 days that weekend, I think it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, at his property. Now, his property is a little house, 150 acres of absolutely nothing, of weeds, literally weeds and trees in the distance. And then Mount Adams is in the distance.
That's a hot spot. I know that much.
So Mount Adams is one mountain down from Mount Rainier. It's in the same, right? And Mount Rainier is where Kenneth Arnold saw his 9 UFOs, June 47. It's a cousin mountain. It's one down the block. So it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So during the afternoons on James's property, he had a large white tent. And I'm going to say no more than 200 people were there. So let's say 200 people probably. And Nick Pope spoke, and William Henry spoke, and some of the Ancient Alien people spoke. Again, this is a year before the Ancient Aliens TV show came on. And they're talking about orbs and Nazca lines and the pyramids and Easter Island, all the great stuff that we love. So Friday afternoon, there was lectures and films and seminars and all under the tent. And then at night, they built a bonfire on the property. And men and women were singing and dancing, playing guitars and tambourines around the bonfire. So it was a sky watching night. So me and my Barbara and 200 people were looking up in the sky for like 5 hours. You know, after 5 hours of looking up, your neck really starts to hurt if you've not done it. It really, really, like it's hard to move your neck after that. And at the time, I had one of those old school video cameras with the VHS tape, the heavy one. So I had it like come on. I want to nothing. Okay, so that's Friday. Saturday day, lectures, film, seminars under the tent, bonfire, looking up in the sky, 5-6 hours with my camera. Nothing. Your neck is killing you. I'm thinking, man, nothing's going to happen. Nothing is going to happen. No way. There's no chance. Now the story gets better. Third final day of the weekend, Sunday, lectures, film, seminars, bonfire, looking up. We're looking up in the sky, maybe 2.5 hours, nothing. Dale, I reach in my pocket, I pull out my car keys. I go, Barbara, if we leave right now, we can beat all the rush, because everyone was going to leave at 10 o'clock. Well, we can beat the rush with 200 cars there, right? The car keys are in my hand. A huge black craft comes from behind us, all of us, from the trees from behind us. Huge black craft comes over 400 or 500 feet above us, and then stops and hovers over us, blocks out the sky. I don't know how big or the shape, but it was black against black sky.
Wow.
And it's now hovering, okay, over us, and it stopped. Silent stopped. And so Dale, I look up, I go, and I said out loud, "What the hell is that thing?" I remember I said that. And then in the middle of this craft, a large glass, I'm going to call it a large glass crystal bulb in the middle, turned on, and a very bright, dark emerald green light came on in the bulb, like emerald green from The Wizard of Oz. A beautiful, beautiful color. Then the light in the bulb decided to shine down the beam of green light over all of us, 200 people looking up. Like, you know, in the X-Files when everyone's looking up and they're in the white. Mm-hmm. Well, we were in green. We were in emerald green. We're looking up, and it's going, and the light's going like this. It's like Morse code. It was like light, 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 light. It was like Morse code in light. Silent, completely silent.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. No sound at all? No humming sound or anything?
No, nothing at all. I'm getting the following messages from the light, and it's not in my ear, it's not in my brain. It was in my heart, and I still can feel it to this day, honest to God. I still feel it right now. Hello, we're here. Sorry we're late. We know you've been waiting for us. We got delayed. Everything's cool. Don't be afraid. We love you. Love one another. We love mankind. Be kind to planet Earth. We have to go now. We can't stay. But we just wanted to say hello. We'll see you all another time. Have a lovely evening. Okay? That's what I got, those kind of messages. Then the light went back into the bulb. The bulb turned to black. The craft slowly moved away, and then bang, zoom, and it disappeared over Mount Adams. That's not a Chinese weather balloon. Okay.
No. Did anybody else comment on anything they got from the light, or did you stick around long enough to find out?
Okay, so that's great questions. I cried. We were crying. People were crying. People were hugging. I wish, and that was the end. And then we had to all leave. Now it's probably 10. It's probably 11 o'clock at night, and everyone just drove off. I wish I had spent some time What'd you think? What was that? It was Barbara was like, come on, I want to go home. So my girlfriend's like, well, let's go. We saw you. She didn't care. I'm crying. I'm like, maybe she didn't get the message. I got a message. I didn't talk to anyone. I'm a dope. I should have, and I wish I had, but no, I got in the car. We went home. We flew home the next morning back to LA. So that was profound. Okay. That was not a military drone.
No.
That was not a Chinese weather balloon. I know. Whoever was in there, they were not us. I couldn't possibly be more convinced, given everything about this event and the feelings I was getting from this light, Okay, so that's 2008. Now we jump way ahead in the future. 2017. In 2017, April, my father died. He died in Florida with his second wife. Terrible death. He had a very bad death. He had a very bad Alzheimer's and cancer. He didn't know who anybody was at the end. I said goodbye to him, and that sucked.
My mom's got dementia, so I can relate a little bit.
Last time I saw my dad with my brother, he looked at us. He goes, hi, who are you guys? He had no idea who his sons were. It was awful. So my father dies in Florida. I live in LA. 3 days after my father died, I went to a deli, and honest to God, everything I'm going to tell you now is a true story. I've told the story all over the world for the last 2 years. I went to a deli to get a pastrami sandwich, my father's favorite deli here in LA, and to think about my father, to be alone, get a pastrami sandwich in honor of my dad, and just to think about my dad. That's the reason I went there that day. I order my sandwich from the waiter. He walks away. I'm sitting, Dale, at the table. A beam of energy or a beam of light or something from heaven or the sky or something from above flies through the air, bang, into my head, like this right side head, really hard like this, bang. And then through my eyes and through my brain, projected in the air, 6-8 inches in front of my face, 3D color hologram home movie with audio of the 1970 UFO sighting I had with my father. This is 47 years later. Mm-hmm. I'm in the deli. I'm watching it like I'm looking at you. And I swear this is a true story. And I'm like, oh my God, I remember that. Wow. Holy S. I can't believe that. Yeah, that happened. Now, my mother said it was a memory. And Mom, it wasn't a memory because I was in the home movie, Dale. So here's my joke. My joke is God was a cameraman with a camera behind my dad's car. So I saw my dad's car, me and my dad, and the V in the sky. I saw all of that from a distance. So it wasn't from my eyes. I was in the home movie. Right? Now, in this home movie is the event that I described earlier. I'm jumping up and down like this. And in the movie, now here's the best part. My dad looks down at me. He winks at me. My dad winked at me. He said, come on, kid, let's go home. Then the movie fades and it goes away. It just dissipates. It stops playing. I'm shaking. Then in my ear, I hear, get a pen, get a pen, get a pen. You need a pen, you need a pen, get a pen. I asked the waiter for a pen. He brings me the pen. On the table in front of me was a paper placemat. I put the pen in my hand. My hand did automatic writing, which I've never done before or since. My hand wrote the following things. Write a book about benevolent aliens. Lead character's father knew about UFOs. Then I wrote capital A, capital T, capital C, and then my hand stopped moving. That was it. So I have a piece of paper, and I'm like, what the hell is happening? What the hell's happening here? And I'm looking and looking. I'm like, well, I guess I have to write a book about benevolent aliens. The lead character's father knew about UFOs. And then ATC, obviously.
After they came.
It came to me at the deli, the title. Then I finally get my pastrami sandwich. I inhale it. I go home. For the next 8 months, I read this book. And then I got it published years later. So now all of this leads to who was my father, right?
Right.
Isn't that the next logical part?
Yeah.
My father My mother and I and my brothers knew a little about my father's work, but it was top secret. My father was an electronics engineer and a physicist for the U.S. Army for 45 years. He worked at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey Army Base. All we ever knew is that he helped to design and invent missile systems and radar systems. Okay, that's all we ever knew. He never talked any specifics. There was no detail about his work. I never was at my father's workplace in my entire life. I never even was on the fort. It was top secret, right? None of us. My mother might have been when they were just married, but it was all top secret. My dad never said a word. When I used to ask him, Dad, what do you do for a living? Oh, I helped America win the Cold War. That's all my father ever said about his job. So the only thing he ever said, right? Okay, so that we knew. So now I'm reading this book and I'm thinking, I'm going to call my mom. Now, my mom is still alive. She turns 90 in October. We're going to have a family reunion. She lives in New Jersey. I said, Mom, all the years you were with Dad, my mother was his first wife. All the years you were with Dad, did he ever talk about UFOs? She said, in the early 1950s. Now, Dale, I never heard the story before in my life until after my father died.
Right.
In 2017. She said, early in the 1950s, they took your dad deep into the vaults at Fort Monmouth Army Base, top secret vaults, all the way down in the basement, and showed him something top secret. She said, he came home, your father was pale and shaking and nervous, looked like he was going to cry. My mother said to my father, honey, what's wrong? My father said, I saw something today in the vaults. I could never tell you or anyone about as long as I live. And my mother said he was never the same after that day. Now, do you know the story? This is my analogy. Do you know the story with Jackie Gleason and President Nixon? Do you know that story?
I'm trying to remember it. I remember Gleason quite well from the Honeymooners, but I don't think I know that story.
It's such a great story. And a lot of people know it, a lot of people don't. In the 70s, when Nixon was president, he and Jackie Gleason, the comedian from Honeymooners, were very, very good friends. They used to play golf together in Florida.
I think I have heard it. It's
been a while. This is the story that I've heard and read several times. Right. They were playing golf together in Florida. Nixon's president. At the end of the golf game, Nixon says, hey, Jackie, what are you doing tonight? You got any plans? Jackie says, no. Because you want to see something really, really cool? Jackie goes, sure. That night, Richard Nixon, the president of the United States, picks up Jackie Gleason at Gleason's house. Nixon is driving his own car. There's no Secret Service. There's no police. There's no motorcade. He's the president. He's like a guy going out for a beer with a friend. Picks up Jackie. They go in Nixon's personal car. That's my favorite part of the whole story. Mm-hmm. They go to whatever the Air Force base was. If you Google it, I'm sure it's out there somewhere. They go to an Air Force base unannounced. They pull up to the gate. The guard looks in the window and goes, yes, can I help you? Nixon unrolls the window. It's the president of the United States. The guard goes, oh, Mr. President, what are you doing here? He goes, open the gate, Sonny. Oh, of course, Mr. President. I said, right? He's just the president pulls up. There's no appointment. No one was expecting him. They open the gate. He pulls on the base with Gleason. They go into a hangar. He shows Gleason dead alien bodies. Brings him back home. Gleason's wife said, Jackie Gleason was never the same after that. He was profoundly depressed for weeks. He didn't leave the house, and it was very hard for him to talk about that experience. So my analogy for that story is it's comparable to what my dad told my mom in the early 50s. He saw something that upset him deeply, and he said, I can never tell you as long as I live. Okay, so that's a big clue, right? Also, after my father died, I looked through his old papers. I found a 1985 profile of my father. I never knew this existed, from his workplace. And it profiled my dad as a full page. I have it still. My father helped invent military drones using laser technology. I have it in writing. Okay, keep that in mind. Nobody knew that, right? Now, the story gets better. In Richard Dolan's book, UFOs and the National Security State. In the back of that book, there are UFO sightings on radar, a chronology of them at U.S. military bases, starting from the 40s to the present day. In 1951 and in 1952, the first 2 years my dad worked at Fort Monmouth, there were UFO sightings above Fort Monmouth on radar.
Oh, wow.
And my dad was working there. So even if my dad wasn't outside looking up and saw them, at the least, he had to have heard people, hey, hey, there's UFOs out there. Yeah, really? He was there. He was right there.
That was also the year that they were spotted over Washington, D.C., 52.
That's right, 52. That's exactly right. In fact, in Dolan's book, it says 51 was one UFO and 52 were two UFOs above my father's workplace. Okay. Wow. Now here comes the best clue of all, and then I'll analyze all the clues. Last year, Stephen Greer gave a 3-hour talk at the Washington Press Club about the whistleblowers that he's working with who are waiting to come forward as soon as Congress passes legislation to protect them so they won't go to jail. They won't be audited by the IRS. They won't lose their pensions. That's why all these people are waiting, including my dad. My dad was never, ever going to jeopardize his pension. There was no chance of that happening. So in Greer's 3-hour talk, he shows a slide to his audience, and it's on TV. I watched it on TV. A slide of 145 U.S. military bases that he has proof of through his whistleblowers that worked on top secret U.S. military projects using reverse engineering of alien technology. Okay, he has proof of for these 145. So I freeze framed it, Dale. I freeze framed the frame. I looked at my big TV. I looked at it like this with my finger. Number 51 is Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, where my dad worked. Okay, put all the clues together. Oh, another thing was, I do remember when I was little, my dad was at the Pentagon all the time. My mother also told me my father went to White Sands missile testing range all the time. I never knew that before. And another thing I remembered my dad told me was, when I was a little kid, he said, President Kennedy read one of my reports. I go, really? I go, Dad, that's amazing. Can we get ice cream? I'm probably 10, right? Put all that together. My dad and my dad was a genius. Okay. My dad was a genius, electronics engineer, physicist, U.S. Army, 45 years. Saw something top secret in the 50s, a few years after Roswell, that blew his mind. And my mother said he was never the same after that. In Dolan's book, there was 2 UFOs above my father's workplace. He went to the Pentagon all the time. He went to White Sands all the time. JFK read one of my father's reports, which he told me to my face. And Stephen Greer has proof that Fort Monmouth worked on UFO technology. And my dad and I saw UFO together. He had no reaction, and he winked at me. Okay, so what does that all add up to? Equals, my dad knew what that was.
Right.
My dad knew what that was. Either he helped design it or build it or test fly it out at White Sands, or was aware of it from his workplace of a team of people working on this. That my dad knew what that was. So all of that now is in my head, right? And then I write my book. My book is about 2 benevolent aliens. They come to Earth to save mankind, solve all mankind's problems. The lead character is this schmucky guy who hates his life, and he's bankrupt and he's miserable. And on page 1, he's drowning himself in the Pacific Ocean on his 70th birthday because he hates his life. So as he's drowning in the ocean, a huge UFO comes out of the ocean, beams him on board to save his life. This UFO travels across all of Los Angeles, stops at Dodger Stadium, and then these 2 beautiful, tall, white Nordic Pleiadian aliens, male, female, 7 feet tall, come down. And then this schmucky guy who was drowning, and they saved him, comes down. And they go, people of the world, we're here. Don't be afraid. We love you. We're here to solve your problems. We've been here a very long time. Bring your problems to this guy. His name is Jonathan Tuckerman. We have a relationship with him. Bring him your problems. We will work only with him. And through working with him, we will solve as many of your problems as we can. The aliens leave. This guy is like naked on second base. He just was drowning. And now he's the most famous man on the planet Earth. And you have to read the book to see what happens. But he becomes friends with the president of the United States. She gives him an office at the UN. He works with the aliens for years. They solve all of mankind's problems. And by the end of the story, he wins the Nobel Peace Prize. So I call it The Day the Earth Still Meets It's a Wonderful Life. Mm-hmm. So it's science fiction, but in the book, the lead character's father, I base him exactly on my father. I have him being a scientist for the Army, testing drones and things, and knowing about UFO technology, and never telling his son that he knew until after his death, the lead character discovers that who his dad was, as I did. So it parallels some of my real life. So that book came out in March. I got quotes from Nick Pope, Richard Dolan, Lynn Katai, Travis Walton, Kathleen Martin. These people said, Dan, this is a hell of a book. This is a hell of a book. George Norrie, Danny, where's the movie? I want to see the movie, which is what my mother says to me every time I speak to her on the weekend. So this book, Adele, opened a portal to a new world for me, literally. It came out March 1st last year, 2023. Because of this book, I befriended Stephen Bassett. I met him at UFO Con last year in San Francisco. He and I became just instant. I would say he and I are probably best friends.
All right, let's back up on that just a little bit. There's a couple of things I want to cover, and then we'll get into the Bassett and all the connections
and
with
the
Hollywood
HDA.
Alliance.
Okay.
But let me go ahead and
sure.
bring some of this up. Now, you mentioned, I want to go ahead and highlight some of the other stuff. I kind of want to work towards your next two books, the two that you've just brought out. But
okay,
let's go ahead and talk about some stuff that you're involved with. This is through the UNX network, if I'm correct.
That's right. Right. So last year I befriended a woman named Margie Kay. Margie Kay is in St. Louis. She's very much involved with MUFON St. Louis. Margie Kay offered me my own podcast because of my book and because of Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, which we'll talk about.
Yeah.
So my podcast is called Live from Hollywood. It's Paranormal Tonight. Every Thursday night, it's on for 1 hour. My last show was Britt. Do you know who Britt is, by the way?
Oh, yeah. I had her on a podcast a few months ago, and just an amazing podcast. We talked about Billy Myers. We talked about the 7 years of time that they actually went over there and interviewed him. Just one of the most enjoyable podcasts I think I've ever done. I enjoy Matt quite a bit and Steve, but there was just a different feel for this one. And Margie was the same way. I had Margie on as well. Let me go ahead and move to that. This is the UNX network, which is kind of her baby.
That is her baby. Yeah. Do you know Race Hobbs? Do you know the name Race Hobbs?
That's not one I'm familiar with.
Race Hobbs is Margie's producer. He's the line. Margie owns UNX network with her husband. Race Hobbs is the worker bee who like, he's my producer. He produces all these live shows every week. He works his ass off, this guy. So Margie gave me a show. It debuted January this year. I'm almost at 30 shows now. And what's kind of cool about my show, which parallels my life, I have, as you know, I said earlier, one of my legs stands in Hollywood and the entertainment industry. And my other leg in the last 2 years stands in the world of ufology. So on my show, I've had Dee Wallace, Thomas Jane, and Donnie Ramirez. These are all movie stars. In the fall, I'm going to have Dave Foley and Robert Englund and Michelle Phillips from the Mamas and the Papas. These are all entertainment industry people. And on the other side, I've had Richard Dolan, Nick Pope, Steve Bassett, Paul Hynek, Ron Janik, Ron James. In the fall, I have Avi Loeb coming up, Kathleen Martin. So it's really fun. It's live from Hollywood. It's Paranormal Tonight. So it's the perfect name, right? It was my title because it's like, chocolate and peanut butter. But the two worlds that I live in. And it's on the UNX network every Thursday night. We just got a new time slot, 6 to 7 p.m. Pacific.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Then the next thing I wanted to go ahead and bring up was the MUFON network. I got the wrong one. Anyway, what I thought was interesting as I started listening to the people that you're involved with and the organizations that you're involved with is there's just a lot of parallels. You know, you're kind of like up there and I'm like down here, but we definitely know some of the same people. And I find it interesting. I mean, you've been a MUFON member since 2007. I'm
Right.
about 15 years behind you, but I've been a member of MUFON since 2022. In fact, I was going to become a field investigator, but I
Wow.
realized I didn't have the time or the finances to be able to pull it off, and so I went
Okay.
this direction. But I had Margie Kay on, and she's the assistant state director for the state of Missouri, and just a phenomenal person. And then Mark D'Antonio, he's like the chief photo and video analyst for MUFON, and so I thought that was pretty cool. That was another connection that you and I had with some commonality with people that we know and stuff like this. Now I want to move on to
Wait. Hold on. Before we move on,
right.
tomorrow morning, I have a Zoom with Mark D'Antonio and a woman named Dr. Ava Cadell, who lives in Los Angeles. Dr. Cadell has a 200-acre ranch near Santa Barbara, a retreat. And you can see the night sky, and it's magnificent. I've been there. And Mark and I became friends at Contact. And I'm trying to, me, Dr. Cadell, and Mark, tomorrow morning, we have a Zoom to see how we can turn this retreat into a sky watching destination through Mark. So it's so funny that you happen to mention Mark.
I just had one with Ben Hansen over in Roswell. First night we were supposed to do it, there was lightning, and it turned out they even had a funnel that was spotted in it, and so they had to cancel that one. But I was able to do it. And then Friday night I went out with my night vision binoculars and got a bunch of satellites. Didn't necessarily see a UFO. Saw something streaking down, and I'm trying to figure out what that is. But I sent a copy of the satellites. There was like 3 of them coming in the screen all at one time, and I sent that to Mark and asked him to look at it. I told him I thought he'd like it, and he told me he did. Okay, one more thing that I want to bring up.
Do you know the name? Do you know the name Earl Grey Anderson?
Oh yeah, very much so.
Have you had? He's one of my best friends. Have you had him?
I've never had him on. I heard him in McMinnville a couple years ago.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd like to be on. If you need help to reach him, just tell him Dan Harary sent me.
I will do that. I got to get his email though. Steve Bassett gave me a lot of emails, but I didn't get his.
I'll email it to you after we hang up. Okay.
Okay, that would be awesome. I'd love to have him on the show. Phenomenal stories. All right, so tell me who's in the pictures here.
Okay, so now we come to Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. So last year, as I said earlier, after book came out in March, I befriended Stephen Bassett at the UFO Con in San Francisco in March. All we did was meet there briefly. I gave him my book. We exchanged business cards. I told him I was a publicist. He goes, "You're a publicist? I want a publicist." Mm-hmm. I said, "Do you ever get to LA?" He lives in Washington, D.C. I said, "If you get to LA, come, let me know. We'll have lunch." So 2 months later, the end of May 2023, Stephen calls me, "Dan, I'm in LA. Let's have lunch." We had a 3-hour lunch in Hollywood. It's just me and Steve. The place was empty. 3-hour lunch. He told me his life story. I told him my life story. At the end, he goes, "Dan, I'm a disclosure guy 30 years. You're a Hollywood publicist 40 years. What can we do together?" And Dale, I literally did this. I looked up at the sky and went like this. And then I came back down. I said, "Stephen, we're going to create the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance." He goes, "That's it. That's exactly right." We shook hands. 3 words. We didn't know what it was. I still don't know what. No, I'm only kidding. It was 3 words. We weren't sure what it was, but we knew that the 3 words were the magical words. We just knew it right in the moment. Mm-hmm. 4 days later was Contact in the Desert 2023. Stephen invited me that weekend in Palm Springs to be his guest in the hotel. And he introduced me to everyone. I had never been there before. I knew about it. I had never been to one before. So last year, Contact in the Desert, he introduces me to Nick Pope, Richard Dolan, Paul Hynek, Ron Janix, the owner, Ron James, Katie Page, Earl Grey, and one after the next. And I'm a kid in a candy store because when I was a little kid, I saw, I think 300 rock and roll concerts, and I was, a fan of the Led Zeppelin and the Who and the Stones and all that. But in the last couple of years, I've become, a UFO groupie, right? I've met Giorgio at least 6 or 7 times, and every time I talk to Giorgio, I still get excited. So he introduces me to everybody, including George Norrie. And as Stephen is introducing me, we tell everybody we are going to create the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. All we had was 3 words. That's all we had. And every single person Dale had contacted, starting with George Norrie, George grabbed my shoulder and said, Danny, I want to be your first member. I said, George, you're the first member. Every single person, 201. Oh, yeah, sign me up. I want to be in that. That's how HDA was born at Contact. So then last fall, Stephen and I had a million lunches and phone calls and Zooms, and we're like, okay, what the hell is Hollywood Disclosure Alliance? We have a tiger by the tail. What is it? Okay, so in this picture, the beautiful woman there, that's my daughter, Anjali. She is a graphic designer and an artist. She created the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance logo, which you're looking at there, and the website. So she put that together for me and Stephen last year. And then Stephen is inviting all of his UFO disclosure friends. I'm inviting all my Hollywood friends. And we're cutting and pasting together a membership for this group. Today, we have 150 members. We have Shirley MacLaine, Dee Wallace, Thomas Jane, Dave Foley, Dania Ramirez. Those are famous people. On the Hollywood side, we have writers, producers, directors, actors, many, many Hollywood people. On the UFO side, we have the creme de la creme. We have Dolan, Pope, Bassett, Hynek, Ron James, Ron Janix, George Norrie, Whitley Strieber, Travis Walton, Linda Moulton Howe. It's endless. So this photo here, this is the day we launched the Hollywood Disclosure. This was our day 1 event, November 2nd. This is inside a very famous Hollywood restaurant that I represent for PR. The most famous restaurant in Los Angeles. It's called Musso and Frank's. 105 years old. So our launch event was this day. I was the MC there on the left. Next to me is a guy named Jeff Stein. Jeff Stein is one of the world's most famous music video directors in the 80s. He worked with the Cars. He worked with Bruce Springsteen. He worked with Tom Petty. Major music video guy. That's my daughter. And then to the right of my daughter is Sean West. That's the agent.
Oh, that's the guy. Okay.
He's going to be on my podcast tomorrow night. Sean West represents Richard Dolan, Nick Pope, Steve Bassett, Lynn Kitai, Chase Klitsky, and Travis Walton, among others. So these are just some of the. We had 30 people in the room. Yeah, we had 30 people in the room, and we had 30 people on Zoom. And, Danny Sheehan's on Zoom, and Bassett and Dolan's wife, Katie Page, Lynn Kitai. I mean, it was remarkable. It was a 3-hour lunch event. So this is the launch of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. And we are a year old now, and we're a nonprofit 501c3. Half of our members are in the ufology disclosure area. Other half are Hollywood's, I call them Hollywood storytellers. And the goal, Dale, is to bring these groups together to share stories and experiences and information to help nurture and generate the next era of movies and TV shows.
That's what I thought.
Based on real life experiences by real life people. So it's really, there is a TV show in development as we speak that came through HDA. I'm involved with it. And all I could tell you is that it's going to be like the next, it's not the X-Files, but it's going to be similar to the next X-Files.
I love that.
So that's what that photo is.
Okay, cool. The next one I think we were going to go into is, let's talk about your books. The newest ones that you've got out. Did you release these pretty close to the same date? And I've got a list of things that I want to cover at the very end. And it's going to be all of the experiences that you've been through.
Well, I don't think I have time to do all of them, but I could give you the greatest.
I've got a few of them here anyway. I've listed down, and I kind of want to end it with the word synchronicity and talk to you somewhat about your UFO experiences. But your paranormal life book is basically about you, your grandfather, and all the different strange events, right? And so maybe we can do this first, and then you can go through the book, or would you rather do the book first? Because I've got like gargoyles, I've got ghost stories, I've got angelic
Well,
disembodied
you're like
voices.
my new biggest fan. It's
Yeah,
unbelievable.
yeah.
All right, so
Psychic
yeah, I
experiences.
can. Let me.
There's a
I'll.
reason for that, though. To be honest with you, is that some of this stuff, not a gargoyle. I'll have to admit that I didn't have a gargoyle in my life, but there's some similarities, and that's the new word for me, synchronicities. And it's like I didn't even know what the word meant until last week, and now all of a sudden it's like everything makes sense. But you can talk about the book, or we can go and talk about the strange experiences, whichever way you want to go.
Sure, that's fine. That's fine. And speaking of synchronicities, Dale, my book comes out. I meet Bassett. I create the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. I get a podcast. I'm the contact in the desert publicist. I'm very, very well known in ufology now. A year and a half later, a year and a half ago, not one person in this world knew me. Not one. And I'm not bragging. I don't have a big ego. But I knew who everyone was because I've been a student of this. And now everyone knows me and everyone writes to me and everyone's in my HDA. And it's like, wow, just it happened so fast. So synchronicity, boy, I've been the king of that for the last 2 years. My paranormal life, I wrote 2 years ago, still kind of during the COVID era. I just was thinking about the UFOs I've seen. And my grandfather was a poltergeist 20 years ago in my house. After my dad passed, he came to my room a number of times and gave me messages and things. I've heard angelic voices, literally heard voices. It's always in my right ear, although once it's in the chandelier, and the chandelier one, that's the best one. But I've heard voices tell me to do things that came true and were always beneficial. Coincidences that defy belief. When I was in college, I was a doppelganger for some other guy. Women used to come up to me and say, "Jeffrey, is that you?" "No." "Are you sure?" "Yeah, I'm pretty sure my name's not Jeffrey." And that used to happen to me over and over again for a year when I was in Boston. I never figured that one out. Is that a doppelganger right there?
Yeah, the guy looks just like the guy in the picture. That's the closest I could come up with.
It looks exactly like the guy in the picture. That's insane.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, isn't it?
So my paranormal life, supernatural stories from a Hollywood Insider, came out in middle of May. It's 2 months old. I've been promoting it, and now it has my 3 UFO sightings, the stories I told earlier. A month ago at Contact, I saw my 4th UFO on the last night at Contact. So that 4th UFO, which is a brand new story, did not make it into the book. So After They Came is about aliens and UFOs, but it's science fiction. Mm-hmm. My paranormal life is my paranormal memoir. And it's very funny. The very first page, Dale, is dead. I wrote the very first page. "I dedicate this book to my mother, Joan, who believes not one of the stories in this book," because my mother thinks I'm batshit crazy. So my mother doesn't believe any of my stories. She thought it was entertaining, but she didn't believe. I go, "Mom, it doesn't really matter that you don't believe. I'm telling you the truth." So that's what my paranormal life is all about.
Well, cool. Well, let's go ahead and let's start with one of the things I found very interesting, because when I see gargoyles, whether you're talking in Manhattan or wherever they're at, these big tall buildings, they're scary. I mean, they are, but your situation with a gargoyle was completely different, wasn't it?
No, actually not. It was scary. It was scary.
It scary? Okay. I thought it saved your life.
But I believe that it saved my life. So I am grateful to it. I'll tell you the story. You tell me what you think.
Okay.
I've had this story. Now, this is a true story. Everything in my paranormal life, it's all true. It's not fiction. It's nonfiction. When I was 5 years old, I lived with my parents in Asbury Park. We had in a house, and I'm the oldest of 3 boys. And there were 2 little girls, next door neighbors, who used to come over, ring on the bell, and ask my mom if I could go out and play with them. They were a little older than me, Kathy and Lizzie. They were sisters. So I used to play with these 2 little girls when I was 5 years old. And we used to climb fences and we used to climb trees. That's what we did. We climbed. I think we played jump rope too, if I recall. One day we were walking down the street. A block from my house was a drugstore. Around the corner from my house and around the corner and then around the bend below, like a little bit below our street, was a mini mall with a drugstore. Next to the drugstore was a 30-foot tall billboard sign promoting the drugstore. So these girls said, "Hey, Danny, let's go climb into the sign." I said, "Okay." So we go climb. Now, inside the sign was like the wooden skeleton lattice behind where the image of the drugstore would be. It was the interior skeleton of the sign. Wooden beams. We're climbing up inside their wooden beams, and this is clear as day, and it's my first memory, and I remember it very vividly. So we're climbing up. It had to be 30 feet tall, I'm thinking, because it had to be at least 3 stories, because it was a big billboard sign. It had to be. We're climbing up, me and these two girls, climbing. As we get toward the top of this sign, Dale, I remember seeing my hands slip. My hands just opened, and I lost grip of the beam. They went like this. Then I go on my back in the air. I'm falling back on my back. I'm looking up at the sky. And I'm falling through the air, and I remember falling in slow motion. Right. I remember this clearly. I was falling in slow motion because I see these two little girls, and they're like screaming, like, "Ah!" Right? They're screaming down at me. I'm falling through the air. My little brain is thinking, "This isn't going to be good." So it's like, this isn't very good. Falling through the air. Now we cut to. I now have missing time. I don't know if it was a minute later, an hour later, 2 hours later. I have no clue, but missing time. I wake up on a couch inside a home 2 blocks away from the sign. I had never been inside this house before in my life. Furnished house, beautiful house. I was inside on the couch. No one was home. I'm on the couch. I wake up. I remember open my eyes, wake up. I sit up. I look around. I said, hello, anyone here? No one was there. I'm 5 years old. No one was there. I stand up, turn to the front door to leave. A 7-foot tall creature is standing in front of the screen door. It's a cryptid. God is my witness. I'm thinking it's 6, 7 feet tall. Now I'm 5. I could be off on the height, but it was tall. The legs and the body. Now it was on 2 legs. It was not human. 2 legs and the body, to me, looked either like a donkey's legs and body or like a bull's legs and torso. And then the upper portion of this thing in the back looked like it had once had wings. So like where wings would have been. However, I saw clearly bony stumps right here. So it looked like God had taken the hedge clippers and had cut the wings off. So there's 2 bony protrusions, but you could tell there should have been wings there, right? And then I look up at the face. It's a face of a bull. It's this angry, ugly thing. Dale, so it turns over its right shoulder and it goes like this, looks at me, it goes like this, snorted at me. I remember it clear as day. And I'm looking, I'm like, thinking, what the hell's that thing? That thing doesn't like me very much. It then turned its face to the screen door and it either opened the screen door and left, or it dissipated into smoke. In my imagination, it dissipated into smoke. And I have no clue how it left. I don't know. I'd be making that part up. So I left. I looked around. I realized where I was in relation to my mother's house. I'm like, oh, my mother lives down that way. So I went home, and that was it. Probably had milk and cookies and took a nap. That's the entirety of the story. Now, those 2 little girls were not in the house with me, right? I wish I could find, everyone's asking me about them. I know their maiden names, but I'm sure they're long married. They're probably grandmothers by now. I can't find them because I don't know their married names. I think that perhaps I hit the ground, I died or was going to die or something, and this entity saved my life, carried me 2 blocks up the street, put me on the couch, and then was sneaking off to go. I don't think this thing wanted me to wake up when I did. I think it's like I caught him, since then is when my paranormal experiences began. So
You were
whatever
5,
that,
right? You were
I was
5 years old at the
5 years
time.
old. So whatever happened that day,
Right,
to me, that's day one of my paranormal life.
right.
Because since then, it's been ghosts visiting me, poltergeists, voices, spirit guides, all kinds of UFOs. Just everything happened. I don't think a lot of this would have happened had that event not happened. So I think
As far as I'm
I think I opened into a portal.
mhm.
Somehow it made me like have an affinity to the other side. That's
That's
all
a
I can
common
tell you.
age though, Dan. That's a common age for abductions. I don't know if you know that. And
I
then more
do. I do. I know two people who were taken at
you have
5.
missing time. I was going to ask you that because you mentioned all these other UFO events, all of these other synchronicities, and I'm just going, which we'll get to a few more of them. We'll cover them somewhat quickly, but the missing time, the age 5, the fact that your dad seemed to be somewhat involved in it. It tends to run generational, is what they say. I was talking to Yvonne Smith at Roswell, and she's a remarkable therapist in helping people to recover some lost memories. And so that was that was pretty eye opening. A lot of the stuff she
I
said.
should I should work with her. I am friends with her. I should ask her. And
Yeah,
she lives in LA.
yeah, she's in Pasadena. She's not
Yeah,
very far from you, and so I would definitely contact her.
I should.
But then you had your ghost stories. I guess the part that was kind of strange was it your grandfather was haunting where you lived, or was he haunting somewhere else?
So 20 years ago, 21 years ago, 2003, I moved into a large Beverly Hills apartment with a new girlfriend. She worked for the TV show The Sopranos at the time. She and I found this. We were dating for 6 months. We decided to get a place together. She moved in first a few days before me. So she's moved into this large 3-bedroom apartment in Beverly Hills. It's a block from where I live today. And as she's moving in, Dale, there are 3 moving men outside on the street at the truck. And she's inside this new empty apartment, just looking around. As she's walking around, she hears, "Joe?" So she looks over her shoulder. She hears, "Joe?" Like that, twice. She calls me at work, at my office, and she goes, "Danny, weirdest thing happened." "What?" "I'm walking around the apartment. Someone called out for Joe." I'm like, "Well, it must have been the moving men." She goes, "No, they're outside. I'm here inside alone. There's no one here." Okay, well, that's weird. That was number 1. Number 2, now I move in. A week later, she and I were watching TV. It's the only time I ever saw American Idol in my life, I remember. It was Clay Aiken. And watching American Idol, and in the living room, we're watching. In the dining room, there was a large parcel that contained a lot of kitchen items that we had not yet put away. On top of this parcel, bag, sack, whatever it was a kitchen sink dish drainer thing, rack. It had been there for a week. So we're watching TV. I hear thud. I get up. I go in the dining room. The kitchen sink drain rack thing had popped out of the sack. It's now 3 feet in front of the sack, upside down. Now, there was no earthquake. So I'm like, okay, how on earth could that possibly have happened? It's been there for a week. Okay, fluke. Put it back in the sack and watch TV. The third moment, this is a great one. A week later, I'm in the living room. My girlfriend's in the kitchen making dinner. I'm in the living room. We had a beautiful fireplace in this apartment. I had just bought a large oval canister of those large decorative fireplace matches, those long, like 2 feet long, whatever they are, 18-inch matches. I opened the end of the canister. Instead of being a normal person, Dale, I'm picking out 1 or 2 matches from inside this tube. I pulled out all 50 matches all at once with my right hand, very fast. I pulled them all out of the tube really fast. They caught fire. So I'm now in my right hand holding a torch of 50 lit 2 foot long fireplace matches in front of my face. So it's like this, and there's a fire. There's a fire 6 inches, like going to burn off my eyebrows, right? And I'm standing there, I'm holding it. Now it happened so fast. I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, what the hell did I just do? Okay. Now, as I'm holding this torch, and I swear to you, this is all true, left corner of my eye, dark gray, dark blue, cloud of smoky mist shoots from the dining room, flying through the air. Like, think Casper, the friend that goes without a face, flying through the air. I see it coming. I see it coming. It's coming toward me, coming toward me. It goes right up to my hand. It grabbed the torch out of my hand. It pulled it out of my hand and threw the torch into the fireplace.
Oh my
This entity. I saw it. I felt it pull the thing out of my hand. I did not throw it in the fireplace. This thing did. Threw it in the fireplace, and then it vanished. I'm looking. I'm like, what the hell just happened? What the hell was that? Crazy. I couldn't, but that one still amazes me. Now the story progresses. Next week, my girlfriend and I were asleep, middle of the night, 3 a.m. Crash, really, really loud. Crash. Get up, middle of the night. We go in the master bathroom. Someone had taken a large drinking glass of water, empty of water, but a large drinking glass, had lifted it into the air and threw it hard on the bathroom floor. It was in a million shards of glass on the bathroom floor. Now, it wasn't an earthquake. Nothing else moved. There was no wind. Something did that. We looked at each other. We're like, what is happening? What the hell is that? How could that possibly happen? Okay, now, at this time, my kids were 12 and 14. I had rooms for each of them. They used to come visit me on the weekends because I was divorced. So my daughter's in her room, me and my girlfriend in the master bedroom. My son's in his room. Doors are closed. We're all sleeping. 3 a.m, whatever, 4 a.m. Sound asleep. And then I hear, Dad, there's someone in my room. From my son. I jump out of the bed. If you're a parent and you hear that, you wake up instantly. Jumped out of the bed, ran into my son's room. He's standing in his room. He's shaking like this. He goes, Dad, someone's in my room. I go, what do you mean? And he proceeds to knock on all the walls in 360 all the way around his little room, including the glass of the TV screen. He goes, Dad, somebody was just knocking on my walls like this. Knock, 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 knock. All 360. He did it all the way around. I said, well, Jordan, that's the craziest thing ever. He goes, Dad, someone's here. I know someone's here. I'm telling you. I said, I believe you. I absolutely believe you. I said, tell you what, let's go back to sleep. We'll leave your door open. Yeah, leave your door open. Go back to sleep. We'll discuss this tomorrow morning. Fine. Everyone goes back to sleep. His door is open. Next morning, me, my girlfriend, my daughter are down the hall in the kitchen making breakfast. And we're cooking and making breakfast. Suddenly we hear slam really hard. His bedroom door slammed closed down the hall really hard. And he goes, Dad! Now he's in bed sleeping.
It's freaking.
I run down the hallway. I turn the knob down. Now I turned the knob to open my son's door. Something was pushing against it on the other side.
Oh, that's scary.
For 5-10 seconds. It was like, why can't, because I knew the door wasn't locked. It's like something's pushing this door closed. I open the door. My son's sitting up in bed. He's like, oh, Dad, someone just slammed the door closed. I said, I know. It wasn't you. He's in the bed. It wasn't him. Then I said, this has gone far enough. This has gone far enough. So I get out, and I don't recommend this highly. I had a Ouija board in my closet. I had a Ouija board. I said, everyone, we have to figure out what's happening here. I set up the Ouija board on the hallway floor. Me, my girlfriend, my son, my daughter, the 4 of us. We put in, and the plastic thing in the middle is called a planchette. So we each have our hand on the planchette. And I'm pissed, right? I'm kind of pissed. I'm like, this is unacceptable, right? So we all have our hands on the planchette. I said to the board, is there a ghost here? Yes, right away. Yes. What's your name? Joseph. And then here's the killer. I go, Joseph, where are you from? Syria. I go, are you my grandpa Joe? Yes. My father's father, Joe, was from Syria.
Wow.
No one knew that. I'm start crying. I go, are you my grandpa Joe? Yes. I'm crying because I loved this guy. He died when I was 11
Uh-huh.
in 1967. This is the year 2003. That's a long time.
Right.
I said, Grandpa Joe, what are you doing here? And he wrote, Jordan, my son, Jordan. What do you want with Jordan? To teach. Now, my grandfather was an Orthodox Hebrew cantor, and my son was about a year after he had his bar mitzvah. So then I said, what do you want to teach Jordan? And then it wrote a phrase in Hebrew. Now, I knew Hebrew as a child, but I didn't remember it. So I wrote it down. I called my dentist, he spoke Hebrew. I said, Doctor, what does this phrase mean? Because on the Ouija board, it wrote a Hebrew phrase. I knew it was Hebrew, but I didn't know what it meant. On the phone, my dentist goes, Dan, it means I am a stranger here. So I go back to the board. I go, Grandpa Joe, are you a stranger here? Yes. Okay. Now, my son, my daughter, my girlfriend, they're all crying. Like, they're scared. I said, Grandpa Joe, and I'm crying too. I said, Grandpa Joe, look, I love you with love and respect. Can you please leave my house? You're scaring my family. You're scaring me. Please, with love and respect, can you please leave the house? And then the thing went, yes. Okay. Mm-hmm. Then I waited a minute. Then I said, Grandpa Joe, are you still here? Grandpa Joe, are you here? Here? And then nothing happened. I lived there for another year. Nothing ever happened ever again. That was it. So if it wasn't my Grandpa Joe, now remember when my girlfriend moved in and she heard Joe?
Right.
So either he was announcing himself or some other ghost was welcoming him into the neighborhood.
Here's something I think that'll just give you chills. So I decided, because I've heard different versions of poltergeist versus ghost, and from what I read, there's not a lot of difference, but this will click with you. Some people might disagree with that, but from what I read, from the base of the word, the root meaning of the word poltergeist comes from the German word polten, crash, and geist is spirit or ghost. Poltergeists are also known for making knocking noises, which is why the word literally means knocking spirits.
I didn't know that. I thought poltergeist meant loud ghost.
Yeah, it can be, but it's traditionally known as knocking spirits or knocking ghosts.
Well, I didn't know that. B, my son did not know that. And C, clearly I had a poltergeist, didn't I?
Well, let me share one story with you. I don't usually share my stuff, but this kind of fits with what we're talking about, and then we'll get back to the rest of it. But I'm a pastor. I don't know if anybody ever told you that.
No, I didn't.
But the only pastor in the world is talking about this stuff, on a YouTube channel.
That's
but
cool.
I was at church about 8 years ago, and the mother of one of the ladies in my church had died. And so we were setting up the memorial service for her. We had the communion table in the center, and the doors were locked. The windows were locked. And I was up by the front, and all of a sudden this wind comes shooting down the center aisle, and it knocks over the dead lady's picture, and only the dead lady's picture. And in the Greek, the same word for spirit, pneuma, means wind. And I kind of buried it because I wasn't quite ready to deal with it back then. But I've always felt that it was that lady's spirit. It was her ghost, that literally she was trying to communicate something. And what I got, she wasn't happy. And I didn't know what it means. But then I was watching the newest season of Expedition X, and Josh Gates was out in one of these haunted forests close to where Count Dracula lived, Transylvania. Okay. But they had been there 15 years before. And I'm watching this episode, and so he's sending the team back there, but he shows the video from 15 years before, and the cameraman's out there by himself and is in this haunted forest, and all of a sudden this wind hits him and it drags him backwards.
Wow.
And it just blew me away. It's like, oh my goodness, that was similar to what I went through. So anyway, I can relate to some of the stuff that you're going through, and I'm only sharing that as a means of showing you I can understand some of the stuff that you've had to deal with. Now, this one is I'd like you to explain angelic or disembodied voices. Sorry.
Okay. I've had a number of voices from the age of 10 until as recently as the last time I saw my dad in 2016. I'll give you some of them, and then I'll save the best one for last.
Okay.
I'm 10 years old. The Monkees came on TV. Now, at the time, from 7 to 10, I played classical piano, and I hated it because my parents made me study piano. I'm 10 years old. I'm watching the Monkees on TV. I'm absolutely madly in love with the Monkees. I fell in love with the Monkees the first episode. And Mickey Dolenz, the drummer from the Monkees, I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, wow, that's the coolest guy I've ever seen him with my own eyes. As I'm watching, Dale, I hear in my ear, Danny, you need to play the drums. Sentence. I turn around. Wasn't my father, wasn't my brother. Nobody was there. Danny, you need to play the drums. I get up after the Monkees. I go to my parents. I go, can I play the drums? No, you play piano. I said, no. I need to play the drums. Got to play the drums. No, Danny, you play piano. No. I'm going to play the drums. Play the drums. So I hawked my parents. I hawked them. They said, okay, we'll give you drum lessons. Keep the piano lessons. You're going to do both things. If you prefer drums after 2 years, we'll get you a drum set. That's the deal. That's what happened. I blew off piano and they gave me drum lessons to their credit. And when I was 12, they bought me a drum set. The drum set led me to rock bands and light shows. That led me to work with Bruce Springsteen and all the bands I worked with in the 70s. And that led me to my best friend, Steve, who's a guitarist, who now owns the Cutting Room nightclub in New York. He discovered Lady Gaga. Steve and I went to Boston together to go to college. I studied communications. And then after that, I ended up in the entertainment industry. All of those things were linear from the drums. So Danny played the drums. Those words changed the course of my life. Really, just those couple of words. That's one thing. 2009, I'm watching TV. I'm successful publicist in Beverly Hills, watching TV. I'm watching a TV show called Celebrity Rehab with Dr. Drew Pinsky. Remember that show?
Yes, I do.
So I'd never heard of it. So I'm watching that show. In this episode, I happen to have it on the TV. I see this incredibly beautiful blonde woman sitting on the floor throwing up in a garbage can because she's going through drug withdrawal. I sat there on the couch. I'm watching. I'm like, that's probably the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life. Why would she, someone who looked like that, be throwing up on a garbage can on TV? Couldn't believe, like, how could her life have sunk to that level? As I'm watching that, the voice in my right ear said, and I swear to you, this is true, Dan, she needs your help. Okay? I heard the voice clearly. It's always in my right ear, by the way. So after that, I'm like, okay, so go on the computer. Her name was Amber Smith. If you Google her, probably one of the most beautiful women who have ever lived on the planet Earth, Amber Smith, supermodel. I tracked her down. I found her phone number on a website somewhere. I left a message on a machine. I said, hi, look, my name is Dan. I'm a publicist in Beverly Hills. I'm watching your show. You're breaking my heart. I think I'd love to try to help you get your Hollywood career back. If you're interested, here's my number. Not in a million years did I think anything would happen. 2 days later, her mother calls me. Dan, this is Carol Smith. I'm Amber's mother. We got your message. We are so touched that you reached out. When can we meet you? So that weekend, I had lunch with Amber Smith and her mom. And for the next year, Amber and I became inseparable best friends.
Cool.
I helped her resurrect her acting career. I got her speaking gigs all across the country about how to avoid drug addiction. I almost got her own TV show, but then she made demands and she killed it. I almost got her a book deal, but it fell through at the last minute. And then, of course, a year later, she meets a multimillionaire. He moves her into the mansion, and then now she won't return my calls. But that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is, Dan, she needs your help. I helped her. I turned her life around. For whatever reason, I was meant to do that. That's what happened. The last voice I heard, and then I'll do the crescendo voice. The last voice I heard, My brother and I went to say goodbye to our father on his 86th birthday, November 2016 in Florida. We knew he didn't have much longer to live. So we went to Florida to see him and his wife. We spent the weekend with him, and we said goodbye to him and his wife in a parking lot on a Sunday evening. His wife drove him away. He didn't know who he was. He didn't know who my brother or I. He didn't even know who his wife was at this point. He goes, "Oh, you're a nice lady." They were together for 40 years. "Who are you?" You're a nice lady.
Tough.
Okay, so my dad gets in the car. I hugged him. I said, "Dad, thank you for being my father." He goes, "You're welcome." My brother kissed him. They drive away. So they drive away, Boca Raton, Florida. My brother walks to the rental car 20 feet to the right. I'm standing just watching the car pull away. I hear in my right ear a voice that said, "Dan, you will never see your father alive again."
Wow.
Just like that. I turned around. I could have sworn my brother was right behind me. There was no one there. He was 20 feet down at the rental car. I fell to my knees sobbing, Dale. It was the hardest I ever cried in my life. "Dan, you'll never see your father alive again." And that's what happened. I never saw him alive again. Okay, now, that's a sad one. Here's a good one. 1996. I had been a Hollywood publicist for many years, but I was working for this little bastard of a guy who I hated this guy's guts for 7 years. He was my boss. I hated him. He tortured me. I was bringing him hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in business, and I was only getting 10% of what I was bringing him because it was his company. So 7 years I'm working for him. I turned 40. June 96, I turned 40. He and I go to the Four Seasons Hotel in Beverly Hills for a new business meeting with some big hotshot new clients he wanted to represent. He goes, "Make sure you wear your suit, Dan. Make sure you wear your suit." I hate wearing a suit and a tie. I haven't worn one since the day I quit from him, and I'll get to that in a minute. So we're sitting there, and he's telling these clients what a genius he is and how successful he is and how wonderful he is. First of all, the guy's the biggest bullshit artist I ever met in my life. I hated his guts. I hated him with a passion. I had just turned 40. I'm taking my little notes because you know what Stockholm Syndrome is, right?
Oh,
yeah. Well, I had that with this guy. I still dream about this guy 30 years later. So I'm taking notes thinking, I just turned 40. Why am I working for this prick? I hate this guy's guts. What am I doing with my life? And I swear on my daughter's life, I'm in the Four Seasons Hotel in the dining room, Beverly Hills. There's a chandelier above my head to the left, Dale, huge chandelier. And the chandelier said unto me, "Dan, start your own business." I look up like this. I go, "What? Start your own business." I go, "Okay." I go like this. Now, no one else heard that. It was for me. Now, on my little notepad, I turn the page, and now I'm writing down, if all the clients that I give to this prick, if I did all the same work I'm doing now and got 100% of my money instead of 10%, I would become wealthy, right? Light bulb. I write on the paper. So when I realized that, I'm like, I could work from home in my underwear and become wealthy, or work for this prick and be struggling to survive. And I made 80, 85. That's the most he ever paid me. I was worth way more than that. Mm. So in the middle of this meeting, Dale, I stand up and I start smiling. And my boss looks at me and goes, "What's going on?" I said, "Dick, I have to go." In the middle of the meeting, I go, "I have to go." I stood up. I left the meeting, which I'd never done. The highlight of my entire career. Never done it before or since. Mm-hmm. I drive home, go home. I call all of my clients from home. I said, "If I started my own business, would you still be my client?" And everyone, they said, one of them said, "Dan, I would follow you to Botswana. Doesn't matter where you go."
That's amazing.
So now 3 months later, I opened my own business. The first year I made $500,000. Wow. Okay. So the voice in the chandelier literally changed my life. And I've been successful for almost 30 years now.
Wow. That's pretty phenomenal. Let's address another one, because this one I relate to a little bit too. Kind of psychic experiences. Back to the other one. Do you think that was telepathy, or was it something else with the chandelier and the voice and all the different times? You think that was telepathy, or was that something else?
It's such a great question. Um, I think I've been guided at key moments in my life by the higher power. That certainly was the case there. Certainly that was the case there. Um, it was, I equate that one to God speaking to Moses at Mount Sinai.
Mm-hmm.
Moses, tell the Pharaoh to let my people go, right? I mean, Dan, start your own business. Maybe it was God. I don't know. I have no idea. I've been trying to think like if any of my dead friends or relatives, but when I've never recognized the voice, like it's not my grandfather, it's not my friend Paul. I've never recognized the voice. Telepathy. I've had telepathy a couple times. I could tell you those. Um, in high school, I was friends with a girl named Laura in high school, and she and I used to eat lunch together. And one day we're eating lunch, and I just look at her from across the table. We're 16 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and across her forehead, I saw written in her forehead, Steve, Steve. It was written in her forehead like this, Steve. We weren't even speaking. And then she goes, Danny, if I wanted a guy to ask me out, what do you think I should do? I go, you mean Steve, right? She goes, how did you know that?
Oh, wow.
I go, because I just saw it. I just read it. It was Steve, it was on your head. It was like a magic marker. She goes, I can't believe you knew that. I go, well, Steve's my best friend. She goes, yeah, I know. What should I do? I go, well, let me tell him you like him, and that'll be easy. And then I told Steve, Laura likes me. Are you kidding me? Couldn't believe it. I hooked them up, and then they dated for years. So that's that one. Similar one is 1982. I meet the woman who is to become my wife. We're dating for a few months. We're falling in love. And after 5 months of dating, one morning she's at my apartment cooking breakfast. I'm setting the table. We're 5 feet apart. I'm setting the table. I look up across the room. She's cooking eggs. Same kind of thing. I look at her, and then Dale, in my head, billboard sign, WIFE, like this.
Oh, wow.
Wife. Like it was a Times Square bill. And I'm thinking, oh my God. Then I look outside the window, and I swear to you, 2 giant clouds parted, and the sun came down and hit me in the face at that second. And I said to myself a little bit out loud, I said, well, God, I guess that couldn't be any more obvious, could it? And then we got married, and we had 2 kids, and we were together for 11 years. So those are some of the telepathy things, I guess.
Well, cool. A lot of stuff. Then we've talked about the alien encounters, but I really think, and you said it, the UFO encounters, the one that I would look at the most from what I understand is go back to when you were 5. And if you contact Yvonne, I think she can help you try to figure out a little bit more what happened, because I suspect, because I've got something when I was 6, and then I've had a lot of strange things happen since then, but especially in the last year, like 5 different events.
Wow.
And I just honestly believe that a lot of it goes back to when I was 6. And so maybe that's the same thing with you. We did the doppelganger already. Another thing you had mentioned, and I found this interesting, is the curse that followed from past life. What I saw that in some of your writings. What was that about?
That's huge. That's more than we could do now. But basically, I believe, and psychics, shamans, fortune tellers, and hypnotists have all told me this.
Mm-hmm.
I have a curse from a past life when it comes to women, love and romance. Okay. I've been with a lot of women. It's not about being with women. It's about having a stable, loving, a problem-free relationship with a woman. I never have had one in 68 years, not one. My wife, as soon as the day we got married, that night on my honeymoon, my wife got Epstein-Barr syndrome and was sick in bed for the next 6 months, starting with the night of our honeymoon.
Mm-hmm.
A woman who asked me out for a date. I'm in my it was in my early 40s. She goes, "I've had a crush on you forever." Okay, cool. Let's go out on a date. That morning at work, she walks into a glass door and breaks her face. The first date I ever was going to have in California ever. I asked the girl out. She said, "Yes, I can't wait to see you. Come to my house." I go to my house. There's a sign on her door. I still have it. "Danny, my best friend was in an accident. I can't see you." And then I never saw her again. She never answered her phone ever again. 8th grade, first boy-girl party in my house. First boy-girl party. Remember the game 7 Minutes in Heaven? Do you know that game? You're kissing a girl for 7 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So in my own house, at my first boy-girl party, I was pairing up all my little friends to go out of my garage to make out for 7 minutes, and I had to watch, so I'm timing them. So one couple after the next, all these couples are getting 7 minutes in heaven. Finally, because I'm the host, I went last with this cute little girl. Go out in the garage. I'm first girl I ever kissed. I'm 14. We're kissing. I'm hearing music. It was so fantastic in my father's garage. 20 seconds at the most, her father opens the door and says, "Bonnie, we have to go home now." "Dad," the father came to pick her up an hour and a half before the party ended. Her dad came and got her. I never saw her again.
Wow.
So all my friends got 7 minutes. I got 20 seconds. I'm in Cancun, 2002. I'm on a vacation, Cancun. Club Med. I meet this incredibly beautiful young girl. I'm way older than her, but anyway, we're dancing for hours and drinking and dancing for hours and hours and hours. Then we go out on the moonlight, beach, Cancun, summer, magnificent, most romantic thing you could ever possibly imagine. We're holding hands. We sit down on the rocks. We start kissing. She, out of nowhere, she suddenly bolts up out of my lap. "I can't have sex with you. You could be my father. You're old enough to be my father." She turns, Dale, takes 2 steps, and I swear to you, vanished like an X-Files episode. She just went into the mist and vanished, and that was it. I didn't even see her. Where'd you go? It vanished. My whole entire life. There's hundreds and hundreds of those. So I was cursed in a past life when it comes to being happy with women, and it's true. It's true. I wrote my second book is called Carrots, and that's a sex book, and it's about all my horrible stuff with women. So that's a whole huge thing.
So it's something in a past life that caused you to be cursed in this life in relationships. Something happened back then. Is that what the idea is?
I've been told multiple times. And this leads to my book 5, by the way. I was told multiple times I was a serial killer in a past life. I was a rapist. I murdered women. I killed my mother. I committed suicide. I was evil. Hunters tried to kill me in forests. Police tried to kill me because I was murdering women. I've heard this many, many times. So what do you do with that information? How do you, in 2024, get rid of a curse that's probably 300, 400, 500 years old? I've never been able to figure that out, but I do recount many of those stories in my paranormal life.
Wow, that's just amazing. Let's go to something that may be a little more pleasant then. Let's talk about synchronicity again. And as we get ready to close out this podcast, do you feel like everything in your life has been leading to where you are today, or is it just from, I don't know, 2000, what was the year, 2017, or was it after that you really started going to the paranormal?
2017, my father died.
Right.
I get that home movie download.
Right.
I write my book. My book is finished in 2018, but I did not get a publishing deal until 2022. And then my book came out in 2023. So to answer you, I was not expecting any of this at all, not even close. Where I am today, in a million years, I never would have anticipated that I'd be a ufology expert, which is insane. I interviewed Richard Dolan. This says it all, Dale. I interviewed Richard Dolan and his wife Tracy about 3 months ago on my live podcast, and when they came on, Richard Dolan said to me, "Dan, you have no idea how nervous I am." I said, "You're nervous?" I said, "You're Richard Dolan." I said, "You're nervous with me." I said, "Can you imagine how I feel?" Right? This guy's a legend for what, 30 years?
Yeah,
I've been in ufology a year and a half.
Yeah.
So it came to me. It was given to me. All of this, and honestly, I'm not making money in ufology. It's a passion. It's a passion and a hobby and a love and an incredible interest. It's not for money. Thank God, I still have a PR business to pay my bills.
But does that help you maybe having a PR business because you already have some success there? Because I'll be honest with you, I look back on my life and I see all the bad stuff, and then I even see the stuff where I went to Bible college and seminary, and how it taught me to think, and how it developed my mind, how it taught me how to speak publicly. And honestly, I feel like everything in my life has been leading to where I am now and what's going to happen afterwards, not necessarily just to be a pastor. I almost feel like there's a different calling that God's leading me to at this point. And I don't know what it is, but it's beyond that, or a calling. You can say God or whoever, but something has been charting my life. And I'm just wondering, is in your life, do you feel as you look back at it, that everything before it is somehow added to where you are today?
It seems that is the case. And I would say yes. Good example, right? I am about to finish my screenplay. I have a writer, and Michael, he and I are finishing this movie screenplay for After They Came. I'll be done with it in probably a week or two. In August, I'm having dinner with a top Hollywood talent agent who is a friend of mine, and he happens to love UFOs, thank God. And we're going to have dinner, and I'm going to beg him to represent my screenplay because he is the right guy for that. Concurrently, I have probably 10 movie producers I'm friends with now because of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. So I want to get my screenplay into their hands. So 40 plus years Hollywood, couple of years ufology, but then ufology is like on a rocket ship the last couple of years, right? And it's like peanut. I always say peanut butter and chocolate. They're like, I can't even do my hand. They're coming together to then go into this new. It really, honestly, not planned. I always knew I'd work in the entertainment industry. I knew that when I was 15. But to become a notable in ufology with in the last couple of years, it just. I guess I'm on a path. I believe in predestiny. There's a wonderful word, Dale, word in Yiddish. The word is beshert, B''shairt, beshert. Beshert means something that's meant to be.
Right.
My son was beshert. My daughter was beshert. My PR business was beshert. My book After They Came was beshert. And Hollywood Disclosure Alliance apparently was beshert because I thought of it in like 5 seconds. So these things just have been happening to me for whatever reason. I believe I'm on a path. And here's what's funny. I love, my kids are great. I've made a very good living. I've had lots of female relationships. So whatever, for good or bad or ugly. My mother's still alive. I have a million friends. The only bad thing in my entire life was what? Curse with women. Every major relationship I've had, something has gone horribly wrong. Medical problems, financial problems, car accidents, illnesses, weird things with in-laws, religious problems. I mean, it's just for the universe said, Dan, you're going to be real successful in a bunch of areas, but with women and Stable, loving relationship? No, no, we can't give you that one. That's the one thing we can't give you. My wife was not my, everyone says everyone has a true love or there's like the one for every person. My wife wasn't the one for me. When I was 40, I had a girlfriend for a year. We were in love. She was bipolar and she was batshit crazy and she broke my heart. She wasn't the one. There is no the one for me. There just isn't. I've not met her in 68 years. I don't anticipate I'm going to meet her in the next 30. So I've had to live my life and make my own success and make my own path without a warm, loving relationship. I'm used to it.
It would be a tough road, though. I mean, not to have someone to be able to share it with and enjoy it with, and to be there with you through the hard times. And I've been lucky. I'll be honest with that. Everybody in my family got divorced. Everybody, and so I waited till I was 25 because I felt like my dad had 4 kids by the time he was 25. So my parents,
wow.
Everybody got divorced. My sisters, my best friends, all of them. And so then I turned 25, and I'm not even dating anybody. I'm going like, maybe I waited too long. All the good ones are gone. But it was a couple years after that I met my wife, and it was within 2 weeks. I just knew she was the right one. And so I feel for you in that sense, because I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have never went to school. I would have never believed that, a guy who had a 9th grade education could actually be a pretty good student. I had no clue because I never applied myself. But without her, I would have never taken that chance, right. But I had that security. And so I feel for you in that sense. I'm not obviously bragging about it, but I'm just telling you.
No, I'm glad, I'm thrilled. You found your Beshert.
Yeah.
You found your Beshert. I met my wife. I was 25. She was 20. I mean, I thought, and we had 11 years and we had good times, but we had so many incredible problems. Like many of them felt supernatural in the moment. Right. Like she had so she was totally healthy. We get married, and then she's sick for the next 11 years with every disease and illness and surgeries. It was unreal. And then as soon as we got divorced, she was fine. She was fine. It's an absolutely a paranormal, supernatural situation. Look, when I was born, my mother had a nervous breakdown and went into a mental hospital for 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. When I was born, for 6 weeks of my life, I didn't have a mother. It happened. I always joke. I said, look, when I was cursed in a past life with women, starting from the day I was born.
Your own mother. Yeah. Wow.
So, and there's hundreds of stuff. If you want to read that, that's my book called Carrots, which it's very sexual, and I don't promote it because people yell at me.
Okay. Well, Dan, I wanted to thank you for being on the podcast. I've known you for your name is for quite a while. I also want to mention, and I didn't say it earlier when you were talking about Steve Bassett, but Steve was between him and Mario Woods. They were 2 of the very first people to ever come on my podcast, and way, way, way above my pay grade, as far as the podcast. So I want to give a shout out to Steve and also to Mario. And but the reason I knew of you is because of Steve and stuff that you guys were working together. And I was so excited when I got the email from you, because I knew that this would be a great podcast. I knew you had a great story to tell. And once again, just go ahead and mention your 2 books again. Make sure that we, help you as far as those newest books. And Then also, After They Came is another one I think everyone ought to think seriously about purchasing.
That's very sweet. Well, thank you. It was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it. It's really funny. I was with Steve Bassett all day 4th of July here in LA. We spent the entire day 4th of July. And I said, Steve, you've really enriched my life and embellished my life. And I said, Steve, and I've really enriched and embellished your life. And he goes, absolutely. He goes, our friendship is really quite remarkable, because we were two halves. I'm the Hollywood guy that's interested in ufology, but not really knowing enough. And he's the UFO guy who's interested in Hollywood and not knowing enough. So we were 2 puzzle pieces that came together immediately. And we are very, very close friends. DanHararyAuthor.com is my website. DanHararyAuthor.com. I have 5 books that I've written all together. They're all there. Flirting with Fame is my Hollywood book. That's my fun book. I have pictures of me there with Spielberg and Jerry Seinfeld and Mel Brooks and Alice Cooper and Hugh Hefner and Sid Caesar and Kirsten Dunst and Jack Black. So that's my fun book, Flirting with Fame. My second book, Carrots, is a sex book about my curse with women. And if you're faint of heart, don't get that one. My third book, After They Came, Benevolent Aliens Come to Earth to Save Mankind. That's the one we talked about a lot today. My fourth book is My Paranormal Life. That's my ghosts and poltergeists and spirit voices and angel guides and all those things. My fifth book, which we didn't get to, just came out on my birthday, which was June 17th. It's called Five, F-I-V-E, and it's about a serial killer who kills women in 1870s Europe. He's a famous Hungarian stage actor, and everyone loves him, and he's a genius on the stage. Then at night,
you can take some time. Go ahead and share that. Okay. We don't have to cut this off if you want to go ahead and promote.
Okay. No, I just want to plug. Love to plug Five. Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, you know what? Can I grab it real fast?
Oh, absolutely. Take as much time as you need. I'm not in any hurry. I just thought it was winding down, and I was trying to bring it to a good conclusion.
Yeah, this is my new little baby. It just came out a month ago. It's Five, a novella. It's a short story. I'll tell you how long it is. It's only 150 pages. So it's a serial killer. It's a guy, 1870s Europe, a famous stage actor who becomes evil because of things that happened to him in his childhood. You'd have to read the book. So he's on stage and everyone loves him. And then at night he goes around killing women. Well, does that sound familiar, right? So then he gets murdered. 100 years later, he's reincarnated. Now it's the 1970s America. There's a kid named Billy Simon in Boston who's a gifted singer-songwriter, guitarist, and he's incredibly handsome. He has the voice of an angel. He starts writing hit songs. He gets discovered in Manhattan. He becomes the biggest pop music star in the world. But because of things that happened to him in his childhood, he then becomes a serial killer. And not to give it away, but at the end of the book, you find out how these two serial killers are related to each other. It's called dark fiction. I walk 5 miles every other day through Beverly Hills, and I just kept thinking, five, that's such a great word, five. It's so strong. I love this word, five. What is five? What is five? And then I came up with Fievel. Fievel. That'd be a good name for a character. Fievel. Yeah. His nickname is Five. Fievel, Five. Okay, five. What does Fievel do? And then, so crazy. I came up with this premise. What if Bruce Springsteen was a serial killer, right? Think about like most beloved rock star in the world, right? 50,000 people screaming, crying. Yeah, everyone loves him. Okay, towels off. Hours later, he gets in his car with a hoodie. He drives around and he kills women. Like, what could be more incongruous, right? So I'm like, what if my character gets reincarnated and he's the biggest rock star in the world, but he still kills women? So that's what this is. So my mother read this the other day, and she goes, "Danny, it's brilliant, but you have a lot of dirty words in there." I go, "Mom, it's a serial killer. Is he supposed to pick flowers? What would you like me to do?" So there you go. That's
so you're trying to give us some insight into Bruce Springsteen. Is that what you're trying to do here?
Not at all. He's the nicest guy in the world, but
yeah, I know.
It's just so I love incongruous. I love things that are just Bruce Springsteen and serial killer. They're just. But to me, that was the premise for this book.
Right. Well, good.
DanHararyAuthor.com, or also HollywoodDisclosureAlliance.org. Check it out. You can become a member. Dale, if you'd like, you could be a member as well. Just send me your bio and your photo, and I'll put you in there.
Okay.
Sounds awesome. Our members, we have a few live events every year. We have a newsletter, and we have a Slack channel whereby our members talk to each other, like if there are casting directors looking for abductees, or abductees just wrote a book and they're looking for an agent. It's really quite robust. People talk to each other in there all the time. So HollywoodDisclosureAlliance.org and DanHararyAuthor.com. And now I need a nap because I'm tired.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, I can't wait or after they came for that to come out. I'm
You, me, and my mother. Yeah, right.
I'm scrolling the TV every night and YouTube and everything, trying to find a
I'll let
UFO
you know.
movie I haven't seen. So I'm looking forward to that. And then you said there's also a series coming out.
There's a series coming out. I'm not allowed to talk about the title of it, but it's George Knapp is involved, Paul Hynek is involved, myself and Steve Bassett just became involved 2 days ago.
Wow.
It's like an X-Files type show. There are some heavyweight people who are working on it. It's in development, which means it does not yet have a cast. It does not yet have, CBS or NBC or Netflix. But the people behind it are legit, and this show will probably, if I had to guess, I'd say a year from now we'll be probably watching the show. A year from now.
Is it separate from Spielberg's whatever he's doing? I hear he's got a project.
Yeah, God. Well, Spielberg. I mean, he's the leader, isn't he? Close Encounters. I've seen Close Encounters at least 50 times, at least, and every single time at the end I cry. Every single time. And then, like a schmuck, when I met Spielberg, I met him at an event in 2010. And instead of talking to him about Close Encounters, that's what I would do now.
Right.
Instead, when I met him, I thought, what can I say to Steven that he's never heard before in his life? Steven's late mother had a restaurant a block from my house where I eat with my mother when my mother comes to visit me. I've had lunch with Spielberg's mother and my mother many times, right? So I'm like, people go to Spielberg, E.T., I loved E.T., or Jaws was scary, or Schindler's List was a masterpiece. I go, Steven, my name is Dan. I go, your mother makes the best blintzes I ever had in my life.
Oh my goodness.
And he's shaking my hand. He goes, yeah, you're right. My mother makes really great blintzes, doesn't she? I go, Steven, I have had lunch with your mother and my mother at your mother's dairy restaurant many times. He goes, that's so cool. And that's how Steven and I became friends.
I was going to say, you connected on that
level. Completely different level.
I was like, I met Lou in 2022, Lou Elizondo, and I had my daughter with me, my 15-year-old daughter. And so he met her. He told me that she reminded him of one of his daughters, could be like a lookalike.
Oh, cool.
And so several months later, I was commenting on a post that he made. And I said, I met you in 2022. You probably don't remember me because you meet a lot of people. I said, but you said my daughter looked like your daughter. And it was like, oh, yeah, I remember you. And it was like a connection point, just like what you're describing. The other one I like that Steven Spielberg put together that wasn't mentioned, and that is the Taken DVD series.
Yeah, I need to get that because I think I saw Taken when it came out. I don't remember it. I need to watch it again.
It was a great series about abduction and how generational it affects, and just I really enjoyed it. It's just I've got it on DVD and I'm actually watching it again right now.
I need to get. I think Dakota Fanning was a little girl then, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I need to watch that one again.
Yeah, she narrated most of it. She didn't come in till later, but it's a great one. Anyway, Dan, I want to thank you for being on the podcast.
Great. My pleasure, man. Thanks. Thank you. Send me your bio and your photo. I'll send you Earl Grey Anderson's info. And, we're friends. You and I are friends now. So
all right. That sounds good, man. I really appreciate it.
All right, brother. Thanks, man.
All right. You take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
To everyone else, I want to thank you for watching the podcast. I know some of you are watching it live. Others of you are going to watch it later. And I just want to let you know how much I appreciate it. And once again, if you haven't done it already, can you please subscribe, hit that share button and the like button as well. Thank you so much for watching the podcast, and we'll see you next time.